Well, how many times have you said to yourself, I wish this endless campaign would be over so we can finally bring the term of one of the worst presidents in United States history to an end and begin the term of another of the worst presidents in United States history? How many times have you said, I can't wait until we can finally vote, be disgusted with the results, start the next endless campaign, and so on until my life is thankfully over? Well, congratulations, Election Day is here. And yes, you're also another day closer to death, so things are going just the way you wanted. This is the day when you put to use your ultimate power as a United States citizen, the power to drive by a polling place at high speed with your pants down and your backside hanging out the window. So, whether you're a Hillary Clinton voter or a sentient being, it's time for each of you to ask yourself, what are the pros and cons of your candidate? For Hillary Clinton voters, the cons are that your candidate is patently dishonest and greedy, that she sold access to her government positions in return for personal wealth, and that her decisions concerning Benghazi, Gaddafi, and which man she should marry have each led to disaster. On the pro side, her dental hygiene seems good, and her cackling laughter sounds exactly like the crows from the telephone wire scene in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, which turned out to be a much better movie on second viewing than we thought it was at first. Also, Hillary would not only make history as the first woman president, her presidency would almost certainly guarantee no woman would ever be elected to that office again. So if you're the sort of sexist who doesn't believe there should be a glass ceiling when you can get one made of concrete, that's certainly a plus. For Donald Trump voters, the pros are that by putting an ill-educated, unprincipled lout in the Oval Office, we'll probably be raising the tone of the presidency from where it is now. And since Trump has clearly never read the Constitution, he'll only be violating it by accident, as opposed to Hillary, who would be doing it on purpose. Also, as President Trump rampages through the nation like Godzilla, stomping on the lives and reputations of anyone who opposes him, there's a strong mathematical probability that we'll get to see him crush some of the people we don't like before he stomps on us. Most importantly, Trump has promised to appoint a Supreme Court justice who will prosecute Hillary for exposing classified information, which would be absolutely great if Supreme Court justices actually did that sort of thing instead of other Supreme Court-y type activities. But more seriously, if elected, Donald Trump will embody the righteous anger of the people and will do their will when it comes to ending free trade and maintaining our system of entitlements. So those are the cons. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Oh, come, sweet meteor of death, come and relieve us from our agony. You know, I went by my church this morning and there was a line out the door and I thought, oh, hooray, America is coming back to God. Yeah. Then I realized it's a polling place, and I thought, crap, people are voting. This is a terrible, terrible thing. So my endorsement is that you run out and buy my memoir, The Great Good Thing, A Secular Jew Comes to Faith in Christ. It's still only $2.99 on ebooks, and you're going to need it because this is the end of the world. These are the last days. So did you guys vote? Did everybody vote? Yeah, sort of. So I voted. I voted for Trump. I did it without a qualm, but I was sad, I will tell you. And I know people get angry. I see the comments people leave on Facebook and everything, and they're angry at me because I keep saying what a bad guy Trump is. And all I can tell you about that is this, that this is a marketplace, the place where we talk about ideas on radio or on podcasts or in the newspaper, anywhere. It's a marketplace. And where the people go, that's where the information will be. And so if you want people to lie to you, you will get lies because it's a marketplace. If what you want, that's, the audience, the customer is always right. If you want people to lie to you, you'll get lies. If you want people to tell you that you're righteous, that angry, self-righteous feeling you have is in fact the truth, people will do that. That's what they'll do. But it won't be me because that's, I'm here to tell you the way I see it. It's the only thing I have to offer you. It's the only reason I'm here is to tell you. And I'll tell you why, I'll tell you how I came to this decision because there's still a lot of people, including, I think Ben is still never Trump, isn't he? He's still, he's still never Trump. I make fun. I have made fun from the very beginning on the fact that Trump voters are angry. I did that video. I'm angry, so I'm voting for Trump. I think it got like 16 million hits on Facebook. But I'm not making fun of the anger. I totally understand why people are angry. And I especially understand with this, when we have a news media that is so arrogant that it can actually, that a network who runs on public air can appoint George Stephanopoulos, a Clinton hack, to run their news department and think nothing of it, and think there's no way that anybody can touch them, no way that anybody can reach them, that they can control information in the entertainment industry, that they can ask you to go to a movie where you just want to see people shoot each other and fall in love and do all the things that people do in movies, and then insult your beliefs by attacking, conservative principles. It makes people angry. We're sort of in the position of a guy who has a really, really bitchy wife. Like a wife who just is constantly running him down, telling him that he's nothing, embarrassing him in public, insulting his manhood, and finally he hauls off and clouts her. Totally understandable, completely in the wrong. That's the way it is. If you don't hold your anger in check, then you put yourself in the wrong. And that's what I think we have done with Donald Trump. And of course, the political correctness is what drives people crazy. Shelby Steele, who is one of my favorite political writers, one of the very few people I've ever met. I can count on one hand the people I've met who have ever overawed me. Like I shook his hand. I couldn't think of anything to say to him because I admired the clarity of his thought and his beautiful, beautiful prose so much. I've met all these Hollywood stars. I've had lunch with real Hollywood stars, not second tier guys. I've had lunch with totally top notch Hollywood. It's never really. I admire their work and all that, and I'm glad to do it. But a guy like Shelby Steele just knocks me out. And he wrote a piece today in the Wall Street Journal about political correctness and what it has meant and what it means in terms of Donald Trump. I'll read you just a little bit of it, but it's worth going and looking at the whole thing. He says, the current election, regardless of its outcome, reveals something tragic in the way modern conservatism sits in American life. As an ideology, and certainly as a political identity, conservatism is less popular than the very principles and values it stands for. In other words, the policy, when you say you're a conservative, you're less popular than the things you're actually pushing, which I found to be true whenever I speak to left-wingers. There is a presumption in the culture that heartlessness and bigotry are somehow endemic to conservatism, that the rigors of freedom and capitalism literally require exploitation and inequality. This despite the fact that so many liberal policies since the 1960s have only worsened the inequalities they sought to overcome. And then he goes on to say, why is this? He says it's because of slavery and past unfairness to minorities and to women that has created the idea that the U.S. is indebted to these people. And this has obscured the fact that the U.S. is the most enlightened nation in history. He says, how do we pay this debt? In a word, deference. Since the 1960s, when America finally became fully accountable for its past, deference toward all groups with any claim to past or present victimization became mandatory. Deference has become an almost universal marker of simple human decency that asserts one's innocence of the American past. Deference has been codified in American life as political correctness, and political correctness functions like a despotic regime. It is an oppressiveness that spreads its edicts further and further into the crevices of everyday life. And he finally says at the end, societies like individuals have intuitions. Donald Trump is an intuition. At least on the level of symbol, maybe he would push back against the hegemony of deference, if not as a liberator, then possibly as a reformer. Possibly he could lift the word responsibility out of its somnambulant stigmatization as a judgmental and bigoted request to make of people. In other words, it's not bigoted to ask people to take care of themselves. This, added to a fundamental respect for the capacity of people to lift themselves up, could go a long way toward a fairer and better America. There's almost an endorsement of Trump. He's saying just the fact that he's politically incorrect is worthwhile. And there is another thing that I have talked about a lot, but it's worth mentioning one more time, is that the evils of the right, and there are evils in capitalism, the evil of inequality, the evil of people being left behind, the evil of people with no recourse when they run out of funds, when they run out of luck, when their bad behavior catches up with them. Just because they acted badly doesn't mean we as a society want to sit there and watch them rot and die. There are problems with freedom, problems with capitalism that we set out to solve. The problems with socialism are invisible. The problems with socialism are inherent to socialism. Steven Crowder, my pal and a very funny guy, did a Prager University video, where he talked about, he talked about how socialism is inherently bad. Here's a little bit of it where he explains the argument.
Unlike capitalism, free enterprise, which can only occur truly through voluntary transaction, socialism can only occur at gunpoint. That's what it comes down to. If you don't pay your taxes, once you get through the IRS and the auditing and the lawyers and the PR stunts, people make you give the government your money, an increasing amount of your money, the more successful you are, or they send in scary men with guns to take you away. Now, so long as the people having their stuff taken away at gunpoint are in the minority, and the majority feels that they'll get to benefit from more said taken stuff, you'll always be able to win that decision through a popular vote and claim the moral high ground through democracy. Putting the word democratic in front of your socialism doesn't make it any inherently more moral nor less violent. Did you get that? American wannabe socialists also. Get a job.
So that's the thing. Socialism is force. Socialism is pure, naked force. They are taking your money and giving it to somebody else because they think they should. And by the way it works is it's always the middle class who gets stung, because what they take the money from people who look rich to the lower classes, but not the real rich. George Soros isn't losing any money to socialism. It's the guy who makes $250,000, which is a lot of money if you're making $20,000. It seems like a lot of money, but it's not really that much money if you're living in LA or New York. That's, kind of a middle class existence. But the point is, yeah, you're rich to the lower classes, but you're not really rich. The really rich never really get taxed under socialism. And so eventually what it does is it forces the middle class into poverty. And so you have this two-tiered system. Socialism is a two-tiered system. Capitalism, if it's worked well, is a many-tiered system where there are people all up and down the scale. So the only question to me is, since I believe that Clinton is slightly more of a socialist than Trump, although Trump will not reform entitlements, the only question was, did I have to choose? And this is the argument that Ben and I have been having behind the scenes, and Jeremy Boring, the God King of the Daily Wire, and I have been having behind the scenes, where is it truly a binary choice, where if you don't choose Trump, you are choosing Hillary? And I wrestled with this question because I'm a simple guy. I look forward to, it looks to me like I'm a conservative vote. If that conservative vote doesn't go to the conservative, it's going to the liberal. Essentially, it's giving a vote to the liberal. So I think there is sense to that. I feel that this country, to which I owe everything, I have two ways that I love this country. I love this country in a high, noble way for what it stands for, the Republican values, the limited government, the individual freedom. These are the things that I love it for at a high level, and when it betrays those things or abandons those things, I love it less, because it no longer represents what I love as the principles, and when it doesn't represent those principles, I love the country less. But I also love the country the way you love your mother. You love your mother whether she drinks, whether she's annoying. You love her because she bore you, because she made you who you are, because she raised you. This country did all that for me, and by the way, happened to do it during the 50 greatest years of human history. So I was there for the 50 most peaceful, most prosperous, most fair, most just years in all of human history. All of human history from its beginning to this moment I lived through. And I'm insanely grateful to America for that. And so when it asks me to make a choice, even though it's a choice that I find awful, I find this to be an awful choice, I got to make it. I have to make it. If I decide that Hillary and Trump are just as bad, then I don't have to make it. Then I can vote for a third candidate, because what difference does it make? But it seems to me that Trump is clearly better than Hillary Clinton. I believe that after all the panic is over, I believe Trump will be a mediocre, middle-of-the-road politically middle-of-the-road president who will do a couple of things that'll make us all cringe, where we'll all go like, "Oh, did he really say that in the office of the presidency?" Then he'll be gone. He's 70 years old. He's not going to be around forever. I think he'll be a kind of middle-of-the-road president. He'll stumble around, but he'll be fine. Hillary Clinton is a corrupt, lying, cheating, anti-constitutional bully who has announced that she wants to destroy the First and Second Amendment. She has said that she wants to destroy the First and Second Amendments. When people say that she's not as corrupt as Richard Nixon, that her corruption, her scandals are not as bad as Watergate, I think that's absurd, because what they're not factoring in the ideological corruption that Barack Obama has already imposed on the IRS, on the Justice Department, on all the all the organs of government that Obama has corrupted to become purely leftist, purely political organs instead of the organs of justice and fairness that they are supposed to be. So she'll be walking into this machine and taking it over and adding her own money corruptness, which Obama doesn't seem to be money corrupt. She'll be adding her own greedy, selfish money corruptness to the corrupt system that's already in place. You know, people say, well, it's not as bad as Watergate because people lost their jobs and went to prison over Watergate. The fact that people haven't lost their jobs and gone to prison over the IRS scandal is part of the scandal. Part of the scandal is our press, which, remember, was after Nixon, but has turned a blind eye, has seen no evil, is basically decided to see no evil with the first black president. Hallelujah. So, to me, it seems easy to say that Trump is the better choice. And we will talk about this more and look at the closing arguments. But first, we have to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. So you got to come on over to the Daily Wire to hear the sensational rest. What's that? Oh, and come tonight and hear our fantastic, amazing drunken election coverage. It's going to be drunken if I have anything to do with it, that's for sure.